When I was in 6th grade, I played clarinet in the school band. I actually wanted to play saxophone, but my grandpa already had a clarinet, so that's what I got stuck with. Our band instructor was a middle-aged woman. I'll call her Miss Frond. I didn't have many friends, so I often stayed after school for extra lessons. After a while, she started offering to give me lessons at her house instead. Even back then, something about it made me uncomfortable, so I always said no. But she was persistent. Almost every week, she'd suggest it again. Eventually, I stopped going to the extra lessons altogether. A few months later, she announced that we'd been invited to perform in the city's Christmas parade. It was a big deal. The school was only a year old, so this was great exposure. And for us kids, it sounded like fun. The big day came. We met in the staging area, instruments ready, nerves buzzing. Miss Frond gave the parents instructions on where to pick us up after the parade, then stayed behind with a few parade officials to supervise us once they left. The parade itself went smoothly, or at least I thought it did. I was so nervous that I barely noticed anything except the music in front of me. At the end, one by one, the kids got picked up by their parents until I was the only one left. That's when Miss Frond grabbed my hand. The second the last kid was out of sight, she leaned down and said, "You can call your mom from my house." Then she started walking fast, almost dragging me along. I didn't know what to do. I'd never been in a situation like that before. And even though I'd been feeling uneasy around her for weeks, I went with it. Looking back, maybe it didn't look strange to anyone nearby. I was tall for my age and she was short. So it probably just looked like we were walking together. But she wasn't walking us toward the pickup area. She was taking me further out to where her car was parked all alone. It was one of those dark blue-green SUVs everyone seemed to have in the late 90s. That's when I heard it. My name being shouted. I spun around and saw my mom sprinting toward us, panting and red-faced. The moment Miss Frond saw her, her grip on my hand tightened, and she started walking even faster. But my mom caught up. She yanked me out of Miss Frond's grasp without a word, dragged me back to her car, and drove us straight home. At home, she fussed over me nonstop, which was strange because most of the time I was pretty much ignored. I had no idea what just happened. And here's the thing. I never saw Miss Frond at school again. Nobody talked about her. Not the teachers, not the kids, not my family. It was like she had vanished overnight. To this day, I don't even know her first name. And I still wonder what would have happened if my mom hadn't shown up when she did. I live in a big, old Victorian-style house with 7 other people. We're all students, and for most of the year the place is full, loud, messy, always moving. But lately it hasn't been. It's summer now, and people have been moving out one by one. This past week, there's only been 3 of us left. Me, my boyfriend, and one other housemate. When the house was full, it was easy to explain away the weird little things that would happen. Footsteps, noises, things moved around. Of course you'd assume it was just one of the others. But now, with only 3 of us here, the strange things feel different. More deliberate. More wrong. It started with the attic. There's a little black hatch just above the shower. Since we moved in, it's always been cracked open. My boyfriend hated it, said it creeped him out. Then one day it was shut. I'm 5'2", barely tall enough to reach the ceiling with a broomstick. My other housemate isn't much taller. My boyfriend could maybe reach, but he swears he didn't, and he avoids the hatch on purpose. So who closed it? Then there were the cigarettes. 4 of the 8 people in the house smoked, so there were always papers and tobacco lying around. But every so often, we come downstairs in the morning to find these horribly rolled cigarettes sitting in the pile, like somebody had started, then given up. At first, we thought it was one of our housemates rolling in secret, embarrassed by how bad they were. But that housemate moved out months ago. One day, my boyfriend bought me one of those big, swirly lollipops, the kind you only see at carnivals. I left it on top of the fridge. Later, we came back into the kitchen and saw another one of those ugly, crooked cigarettes. Only this time, it had been half smoked and stubbed out on my lollipop. Neither of us would ever do that, and we were the only ones home. Other things happened too. We come back from shop to find the recycling bins, Normally a disaster, suddenly stacked neatly. No explanation. And then the stickers. My boyfriend and I had been away for the weekend, and our one housemate had been alone in the house the day before. He said it creeped him out so much he just stayed locked in his room with the lights off until we got back. When we finally did, we all stayed up chatting for a while before going to bed. None of us left our rooms after that. But the next morning, when I went downstairs, I found something new. Tiny barcode stickers from a nail art sheet I'd had were stuck all over the sofa, perfectly lined up in a strange figure eight or an hourglass shape. They hadn't been there the night before. I asked my housemate first. He swore he hadn't left his room. Then I asked my boyfriend. Nope, the stickers were still there. We tried peeling them off, but they clung like glue, leaving marks behind. None of us would do that. We all want our deposit back. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just creaks and bumps in an old house. Somebody had been here. Somebody who wasn't supposed to be. The noises came after. Bangs, footsteps, taps, things dragging across the floor at night. At first, I told myself it was just the neighbors. Or maybe the wind. But then I remembered something else. My boyfriend lost his keys weeks ago. Anyone could have picked them up. Anyone could have found our house. Now, I can't stop thinking about that attic hatch. The way it stayed cracked open for months, until one day it wasn't. And I'm terrified to check, because I don't want to know what's living above us. I used to work delivery for a company in the South. A lot of the daily routes were through the hills and woods, long gravel roads, isolated houses, places where you might not see another person for miles. I'd gotten used to it. Most of the time, people were friendly. Country folk. Wave at you, thank you, maybe even offer a glass of water. But then there was this one delivery, deep in the country. The road to the house wasn't really a road. No malbucks. No gravel draigua. Just a faint path where cars had worn through the grass. About 250 yards long, straight into the woods. I crept forward in the box truck, barely moving a mile an hour. Back there, you never know when the land just drops off. One bad turn, and I'd flip the whole truck into a ravine. The further I drove, the stranger it felt. I passed an old, rusted truck, half buried in the earth, trees growing up around it. Normal for these parts. But then I noticed something odd. Scattered along the path, at least 4 old satellite dishes. Just lying there, like they'd been dumped one after another. Finally, I reached the house. If you could call it that. It looked like a shack. Straight out of some crime show, rotting wood, broken roofline. A Walter White season 5 kind of cabin. I parked, sat for a minute, then decided to just drop the package and get out. The front door had an old glass window, cloudy, scratched, not modern at all. I set the box down and glanced inside. The living room was empty. No couch, no furniture, nothing but 2 metal folding chairs. Both unfolded, both facing the same corner of the room. And the corner itself? Empty. My stomach dropped. That wasn't right. I turned, started walking quickly back toward the truck. The woods were silent. Too silent. I yanked off my hood, pulled off my hat, wanting my full field of vision. Every step I took, I felt it, the weight of something behind me. A presence pressing harder on my back, heavier and heavier with each step. I made it to the truck, jumped in, locked the doors. Checked the back, empty, but my pulse was hammering. Backing out of that long drive, I scanned the woods the entire way. Finally, I turned back onto the road. That's when I saw it. Not 40 feet from the entrance, in the middle of the road. A black trash bag, sitting there like someone had just dropped it. The top torn open, a piece of clothing sticking out. A woman's sweater. My mind started racing. Those chairs. That empty house. That bag. Was this a kill room? Were people being kept there? I pulled away fast and called a buddy of mine. He told me to turn around, go back, and take pictures. It sounded stupid, but I agreed. 5 minutes later, I was back, and the trash bag was gone. Completely gone. I checked the road, the ditch, even the tree line. Nothing. That's when it hit me. Somebody knew I'd seen it. Somebody had been watching. I quit that job a week later. Unrelated reasons, but I told my boss everything. He said he'd contact the local police and remove that address from our route. I never heard anything back. Maybe there was nothing there. Maybe it was just some junk left behind, cleaned up by coincidence. But the way that bag vanished so quickly, like it was never there at all, still eats at me. And whenever I think about it, I remember those two chairs, facing an empty corner, waiting. And I wonder, who were they waiting for?